What's up, guys? This is James Cooper, and this is Relative Motion, a channel where I show you the most interesting places on Earth and the best means for you to get there. So in this video, we're going to be checking out the Mosquito Air, which you could easily argue is going to be the absolute smallest helicopter you can get, if you can't tell just by looking at it. We're going to talk about some of the features of this helicopter and why somebody might want to own this helicopter. This is the first video on Relative Motion, so thank you for checking it out. And I really hope you find this first helicopter as interesting as I do. Without any more delay, let's jump into it. So the Mosquito Air is a pretty wild helicopter. First off, it's an ultralight, which is its own category for the FAA. If aircraft falls into this category, there are a bunch of requirements it has to meet. These include being less than 254 pounds empty, having 5 gallons of fuel or less, and restricts where you can fly. And for the most part, it's going to only be low over unpopulated areas and only during the day, during clear weather. But the craziest part is you can actually fly this helicopter with no license. Yes, less than a license you would need to actually drive a car. You can fly this machine. However, so I'm sure you can realize this is a terrible idea. Normally to fly a helicopter they require 40 hours of flight training in an actual helicopter to get a license. And even at that point you're largely considered a novice. So in my opinion, nobody should be flying this helicopter without an actual helicopter license. However, legally, it's actually allowed, which is pretty wild. Anyways, back on track to the helicopter. So obviously it has no canopy, which is the craziest feature about this helicopter. You are literally strapped into a seat and just hanging there in the open air, which I've got to imagine is a wild experience, and also just gives you the best visibility possible. I have to imagine flying around in this thing, you just feel like a superhero with the power to fly. So if that idea sounds cool to you, and you just really want an exhilarating experience with a helicopter, that might be one reason to check this one out. So the other really appealing thing about this helicopter is the cost. Because it is the smallest helicopter, it's no coincidence it's also the cheapest to own. They actually don't make this helicopter anymore, and so it's very hard to find. However, if you can find a used one, you're probably going to get one for probably $20,000 or $30,000, depending on the condition, which for a helicopter, you're never going to be able to beat. And if you work on it yourself, you could be looking at really low hourly cost, since these burn a very small amount of fuel. However, because it is an ultralight, it's extremely impractical if you actually want to use it as a helicopter. Let's start out with the fact, aside from wearing a backpack, I don't know how you're going to carry anything with you, and I'm sure that would make for a real comfortable flight. And then obviously any sort of weather you're in, you're completely exposed to it. Then, it's only a 5-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at a max range of about 60 miles, which is definitely enough if you just want to mess around with it, which is kind of what this machine is intended for. So I'll give that a pass here. But in reality, I guess you could be using this for really small commutes, not much more than 20 miles if you want to be able to refill when you get back from where you came from. However, in reality, maybe 20 miles is all you need. Like for example, if you live in New York and you're sick of traveling like the normal person, this has enough range to actually get you around. However, like I said, technically this helicopter can't fly over populated areas, just as an ultralight. So I'd say New York's definitely out, but you might be able to look into registering this as an experimental and getting a private helicopter license if you're dead set on that option. However, like I said, this is a helicopter largely just for fun for yourself, and I really have to imagine it's good at that. If you want to feel like you have the ability to fly, I really don't think there's an experience that can match this. So the last thing worth mentioning here is this aircraft does have a 2-stroke engine that it runs off of, which first off means any fuel you put in it, you're going to have to mix with oil. And then it's also worth knowing 2-stroke motors can be unreliable, which in an aircraft is definitely undesirable, especially if this is a helicopter used for fooling around, which is basically the equivalent of doing acrobatics. In doing acrobatics, you definitely want a reliable engine. You're usually going to be in maneuvers that are going to be hard to get out of if your engine quits, because your engine quitting to begin with in an aircraft usually doesn't end well. But if you're looking to be able to say you own the smallest helicopter, you want a helicopter just to have fun with once in a while, or you're looking for a really cheap commute with very limiting factors, then you should definitely check out the Mosquito Air. So like I said, this is the first video here on relative motion, so I hope you found this helicopter as interesting as I do. Check out episode 2, where we're going to check out the Mosquito Air's bigger brother, the Mosquito XC285, which might be the best all-around helicopter for one person that exists today. Until next time, I'm James Bodie, and you've been watching Relative Motion. Usually, because you're going to be... So I really hope you got some first value out of that first episode.